What if the labels you carry, the ones you've been carrying around for a long time, like the responsible one, or the fixer, or the rebel, or the scapegoat, or black sheep of the family? What if these labels aren't really your identity, but survival roles from childhood? In today's episode, we're peeling back the layers to uncover how early roles shape our adult relationships and how to break free from the false identities we were never meant to carry. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable place to sit, and let's dive in. Welcome to the Happy Family Coach Podcast, your guide to rewriting the story of your family's legacy. I'm Danielle Alvarez-Greer, here to help you navigate the twists and turns of family life, faith, and personal growth. Get ready for practical tools, spiritual insights, and heartfelt conversations to transform your family dynamic. Welcome to the Happy Family Coach Podcast, where real-life challenges meet real solutions. Hey friends. Okay, welcome back to the Happy Family Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Danielle, and this is the place where faith meets family healing, emotional discipleship meets parenting, and God's truth sets the captives free. Today's episode is titled, The Labels We Carry, How Childhood Roles Shape Adult Identity. And y'all, this one is personal, but I know it has impacted and it continues to affect and impact so many of you, so many of my listeners. So what we're about to dive into are looking at where these roles come from, how they show up in our marriages, in our parenting, and even in our friendships and ministries, how they cause conflict, and most importantly, how Jesus heals and rewrites our identity. So let's jump into part one, which I've titled, What Are Childhood Roles? So we are not born with labels. They're given or assumed or internalized out of survival. So let's start with a simple truth. God did not give you and I a label. He gave you and I an identity. But somewhere along the way, many of us picked up roles and labels that helped us cope. They weren't happy roles, right? They were temporary. They really did not give us peace, but we used them to help us cope. In emotionally inconsistent or chaotic homes, children often subconsciously take on roles to feel safe, to feel seen, or to somehow feel the sense of they are in control. So I've made a list of a few common ones, a few common roles and labels that we as children subconsciously take on. The first one is the hero, the golden child, the responsible one. It's all in the one, all in the same person, right? The hero is the golden child, responsible one. They are always perfect, always performing. Most often, but not always, these are the firstborn children in the family. They are subconsciously assigned the role of being responsible for the worth of the family. Meaning, because they're the firstborn, they're the hero, they need to want the one to be the overachiever in school. Like the message being sent subconsciously from the family is, you need to be the best in school. You need to bring home straight A's. You need to bring home the trophies. You need to excel in sports. You need to excel in studies. You need to go to college. You need to do all these things. Be the worth of our family. This individual is often seen as the high achiever, the one who makes the family look good, the one who makes the family look successful. They may feel pressure to maintain this image and can struggle with perfectionism and anxiety. So this is me. I am the firstborn in my family of 4. And this is the role that I subconsciously took on, that was assigned to me subconsciously. They often find themselves on the unhappy kid triangle, either playing out the bossy helper or blaming bully, or kind of going in between. They can also collapse into helpless baby. The second common role or label is the rebel, scapegoat, or black sheep. They are the loud ones, angry, defiant, moody, and most often, but not always, they can be the second-born child. They are subconsciously assigned the role of being responsible for the health of the family. And I'll explain why. It's not a positive health, it's actually a negative one, because they act as the scapegoat, meaning the family gets to point fingers at the black sheep, the scapegoat, the rebel, instead of taking time to look at, reflect at their own plank, the plank in their eye. It's easier to judge and look down on and try to fix the black sheep of the family. That's what I mean by they're responsible for the health of the family, because we get to deflect and not look at our stuff, but we get to pour out, see if he or she, if my sister would just get her act together, then our family could be perfect, or our family could be normal. Or if our brother could just get a job, or, suck it up, or just stop being a troublemaker, or stop being an addict, then our family could be whole. That's what I mean by the health of the family. This person is often blamed for the family's problems and can feel like the bad one. They may act out, disrupt the family's perceived harmony, and struggle with feelings of shame and guilt. They will often play the blaming bully and helpless baby simultaneously. They really do see themselves as being bad, and they're justified in their behavior, but they also really find themselves most often in helpless baby. They believe they don't have what it takes. They don't believe they're capable. They rely on the other family members to do it for them, to enable them, to rescue them. A third role and label is the lost child, or the invisible one. This person, this family member, avoids conflict and has learned how to smooth things over. The lost child, invisible one, is usually, again, not written in concrete, right, is the third-born child. And this individual tends to be withdrawn and quiet, often trying to avoid conflict and chaos. They may feel invisible and struggle with loneliness and isolation. They have been subconsciously assigned as being responsible for the relief of the family. They are praised for being the one who does not need anything, the one who is easy, who doesn't make waves, the one who does not demand too much attention or too much from the family. They often take on and play out the bossy helper role. So what I mean by they are subconsciously responsible for the relief of the family is that if you look at the child before, which is the rebel, scapegoat, or black sheep, the second-born, man, that child in the family requires a lot of attention, a lot of enabling, a lot of rescuing, a lot of disciplining and yelling, and has created a lot of chaos in the family. So by the time the third child comes around, wow, we just subconsciously need this child to just not be like the second-born child. So just don't show emotions, don't be too much, just be invisible. Hopefully that makes sense. Then you have the fourth, the mascot or clown. This child, this family member, learns how to distract with humor. The fourth child often takes on this role. This person often uses humor and lightheartedness to diffuse tension and distract from difficult emotions that are going on in the family. They may struggle with feeling like they need to be on all the time, and can even have difficulty expressing their own true feelings. They have been unconsciously assigned the role of being the distraction for the family, right? We've got so much going on with the second-born child, and the first-born child is over here proving our worth, and the second-born is causing us, to pull hair out of our heads. The third-born child is just be invisible, don't need anything. And then when the family is on that unhappy kid triangle and in their dysfunction, now we need a distraction. And so this is where the mascot or clown role comes in. They often play the bossy helper or bully on the unhappy kid triangle. Then you have the caretaker or enabler. And this child, this family member, meets everyone else's needs. This individual often puts the needs of others before their own, potentially enabling unhealthy behaviors within the family. They may struggle with codependency and resentment. They step into the bossy helper role often until they get fed up and the resentment seeps through. Then they collapse into helpless baby and finally move into the blaming bully role where they are shouting out ultimatums. I will never do this. I'm never going to help this family again. I'm done with this family. But the two things that hook them back into their caretaker or enabler role are guilt and pity. The final role or label is the peacemaker, mediator, or fixer. This person in the family tries to resolve conflicts and maintain harmony within the family. They may struggle with their own needs and boundaries, often sacrificing their own well-being for the sake of the family. They will play the bossy helper role, again, like the caretaker or enabler, collapsing into helpless baby when the things that they're doing for others is not appreciated or valued. But then they'll quickly also, like the caretaker or enabler, move back into the blaming bully role, only to be pulled back into the bossy helper role because they feel guilty for how they behaved or they pity the person in the family that has collapsed into helpless baby. I know this is a lot to take in, and I'm going through this quickly. I think I may eventually in the future do another episode where we just focus on maybe one or two of these roles at a time. But until then, let's look at what research says. I love statistics. I love doing a lot of research. So what I found was 70% of adults say the emotional roles they played in childhood still impact their adult relationships today. Kids from homes with high ACEs, ACEs is the acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences. These children from these homes are significantly more likely to develop rigid emotional roles that will follow them into adulthood. But why? Well, because when the emotional environment is unstable, when we're kids, this is our way of adapting to survive, right? No one teaches us in elementary school or middle school or high school how to regulate our emotions, how to resolve conflict biblically, how to take thoughts captive, right? This is foreign to us as children. We just do what we think we need to do. We adapt to survive. It's called, in the secular world of counseling, family systems theory. And this theory says that every family functions like a system. And when dysfunction happens, kids unconsciously step in to balance what's broken by becoming what the system, quote, needs them to be. Okay? But that role isn't their true identity. Galatians 4 verse 7 says, "You are no longer a slave, but God's child. And since you are his child, God has made you also an heir." So my beautiful listeners, I am here to remind you, you are not the role you played as a child. You are not your childhood survival strategy. You are a beloved child of God. Okay, let's jump to part 2, which I've titled From Roles to Core Beliefs. So each role, the ones we've been talking about, the scapegoat, the hero, the lost child, etc., each role we carry is fueled by a limited core belief. These are lies that get embedded in our hearts when we're young. These are the lies from the enemy himself, whispered in our ear, and then they just stayed there. We didn't have any tools or way to process it. It wasn't modeled for us. Here are some examples of these limited core beliefs I'm talking about. If I'm not perfect, I won't be loved. If I speak up, I'll be rejected. If I don't carry the load, everything will fall apart. Or emotions are dangerous. Or my needs don't matter. Those are just a few. But these beliefs like this, affect how we think, how we feel, and ultimately how we behave, how we act. They become the lens we filter relationships through. And these limited core beliefs drive how we show up in our marriages, parenting, friendships, even ministry. And that's where tools like the Happy Kid Toolkit comes in. It helps kids and grown-ups recognize their thoughts, recognize their feelings, behaviors, and roles. It teaches us to take every thought captive, 2 Corinthians 10:5, and renew our minds, Romans 12:2, so that you and I can live from truth, not trauma. So let's go to the Happy Kid Toolkit. We're going to pull out the reality mat and we're going to look at the unhappy kid triangle, because each childhood role, the ones we've been talking about, is rooted in a limited core belief, a lie we believe about ourselves or about the world or even about God. These lies that we believe are things like this: I have to be perfect to be accepted. My worth comes from being needed. No one will protect me but me. Emotions are dangerous. I'm invisible unless I perform. So let's look at some real life examples. Let's talk about a woman I coached. We'll call her Jenna. That's not her real name. But she was always the responsible one, the hero of the family. She was the oldest of 3, had an alcoholic father, and an emotionally absent mother. She never cried, never rested. In her marriage, fast forward to now, in her marriage, she was the one that did everything, from managing finances to scheduling appointments to parenting to disciplining, until one day she exploded at her husband. Why don't you ever step up? But here's the thing. She never asked for help. She never communicated her needs. She had unknowingly trained everyone around her to expect her to carry the load, to carry it all. Why? Because she believed deep down, if I don't do it, everything will fall apart. So when we began to use the Happy Kid Toolkit, the reality mat, to role play scenarios and to role play resolving conflict, it really helped her. She was able to identify her unhappy belief, the lie from Satan that it's somehow all up to her, that if she doesn't do it, everything will fall apart. She learned how to take that thought captive. She learned to replace it with truth. God is my provider and sustainer. I am not the savior of this home. So this is what Romans 12:2 means when it says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I love role playing, so let's continue and let's look at part 3. I've titled Conflict and Miscommunication. So how do these childhood roles show up in our relationships? So let's talk conflict. When 2 adults are operating from childhood roles, they're not engaging as mature individuals. They're reacting like kids in adult bodies. Here's an example. Let's say a fixer marries a scapegoat or black sheep. The fixer avoids conflict and over-explains. The black sheep or rebel feels controlled and shuts down. Both feel misunderstood, but neither knows how to communicate without reenacting old wounds. So let's try this exercise from the Happy Kid Toolkit. We're going to use the unhappy kid triangle to label your role in the conflict. Okay? So the helpless baby, if we are in the helpless baby role, we are thinking things like, why is this happening to me? If we're in the bossy helper role, we're saying things and thinking things like, let me tell you what to do. And as the blaming bully, we'll find ourselves blaming, saying things like, this is all your fault. But then we want to ask, okay, these are the 3 roles on the unhappy kid triangle. What belief am I operating from right now that's causing me to live or to play out one of these roles? And then what truth does God say instead? We can use this sort of exercise to help our kids do the same thing. And this is how we raise emotionally responsible, spiritually grounded children. In fact, one teen client, I work with a lot of young teen girls, one teen client I work with whose dad left when she was 6 takes on the I don't know, I don't care, rebel, black sheep persona. But through hours of biblical counseling and coaching, she's realizing that he really does care, that he just doesn't trust people to stick around. He's not been able to count on people sticking around his life. He's experienced abandonment and rejection. But now he's learning how to name his feelings and choose responsibility over rebellion. So let's continue to bring this into real life. So what happens when these childhood roles show up in conflict? So when we don't have tools and we just blindly follow, believe, act out these childhood roles, we stop responding as healthy adults and we start reacting like the scared kid you and I once were. It's just, I've seen it happen over and over, even in my own life. So let me show you what I mean. Let's look at a few scenarios I've created. This is scenario 1. It's a marriage conflict. The characters in this scenario are Lisa, she is a bossy helper, and her husband, Mark, who plays the helpless baby. So here's the unhealthy role play. This is happening on the unhappy kid triangle. Lisa, the wife, says, "Why do I have to do everything? You don't even see how hard I'm trying." Mark, her husband, responds or reacts, "I don't know what you want from me. I can't do anything right." Lisa, "Forget it. I'll just handle it like I always do." Mark walks off and escapes to his phone. So let's break it down. What is happening? Well, both are operating on the unhappy kid triangle. Lisa is in bossy helper mode, collapsing into helpless baby, and then moving to bully. That's her final ultimatum when, fine, I'll just do it. Then Mark flips into helpless baby, and then he rescues himself by going off and escaping to his phone. That's his way of bullying her as well. That's his way of getting out of taking responsibility for himself. So both are reacting from old wounds. Okay? So hopefully you can hear that. Hopefully you can picture that in your mind, and maybe you can even relate. I know I can. So let's take that same scenario, but we're going to have a healthy role playing now using the happy kid triangle. So Lisa is really feeling tired and overwhelmed. And so she comes to her husband and says, "Hey, honey, I'm feeling overwhelmed and resentful. I really would love for us to find a time to sit down to talk about how we're sharing the load." And her husband could respond, "Of course, I hear you. I've been pulling away because I feel like I can't get it right, but I really want to." And then Lisa responds, "That's wonderful. Thank you. Let's figure this out together. I don't want to be the fixer anymore. I don't want to be resentful. And I would love your support and your partnership." So this right here, that is transformation. It's what happens when you stop reacting, take thoughts captive, and start renewing. Okay, let's look at one more scenario. Scenario 2, it's a parent-teen conflict. The characters are a teen who plays the blaming bully and the parent who plays the helpless baby. So here's the unhealthy version. The teen, "You never listen to me. You don't even care." The parent, "That's not true. I've done everything for you." Teen, "Whatever. I'm done talking." Parent becomes silent, wounded, shuts down, walks away. All right, that took place all over the unhappy kid triangle. Now let's look at the healthy version. Teen may say something like, "Mom or Dad, you never listen to me." And the parent may respond after taking thoughts captive, knowing this is not an attack on their character. "That sounds really painful, sweetie. Can you help me understand what you're describing, what you're feeling when you say that?" And the teen can respond, "I feel like I only matter when I get straight A's." And the parent can respond, "Thank you for saying that. I never want you to feel that way. Can we talk about how we can reconnect? This is emotional discipleship in action. Okay? Parents, we're not called to be perfect. We're going to mess up. So if you get on that unhappy kid triangle, the quickest thing we can do is to get off that triangle, is to own our part, to recognize where we are. Are we being a bossy helper? Are we being a blaming bully? Are we a helpless baby? Recognize the core belief, the lie we're believing, own our part, and go to our child, to our spouse, whoever it is we're in conflict with, and own our part. Ask for forgiveness. Name it out loud. Take responsibility. Okay, this is how we model emotional discipleship. All right, part 4, I've titled Generational Patterns and Healing. Because y'all, we pass down what we don't heal. If your mom was the martyr of the family, always doing everything and never resting, you might feel guilty for resting. If your dad was emotionally withdrawn, you might label feelings as weakness. But the good news, in Jesus Christ, you and I can break the pattern. Psalm 147 verse 3 says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. You can choose a new way. You can model for your kids what it looks like to express feelings with emotional integrity. You can model for your kids what it looks like to ask for help without shame, how to let go of false responsibility, and how to rest in your identity as a child of God. That is my heart. That's my heart and goal behind why I created the Happy Kid Toolkit, to give families this practical and these spirit-led tools that help them build a new legacy. One built not on roles and reactions, but on truth and trust. Okay, let's jump to part 5, which I'm calling Jesus and the labels we carry. So let's land this in the gospel, as we should. Jesus was never controlled by false roles. He didn't overfunction to earn people's love. He wasn't afraid of tears. He asked for help in Gethsemane. He wept publicly. He set boundaries, and yet he still loved fully. Jesus didn't carry a false identity. He carried the cross. And through his death and resurrection, he offers us a new name. And this new name that Jesus gives us has nothing to do with the roles we were assigned by the dysfunctional families we grew up in. Our new name has nothing to do with us being the hero or golden child, the rebel, the scapegoat, or the black sheep, or the lost child, the invisible one, or even the mascot, clown, caretaker, or enabler. Has nothing to do with those old familiar roles. He doesn't call us any of these names. The new name he has given us are things like beloved, chosen, redeemed, heir, free. You were never meant to carry the weight of a false identity. You are not the fixer, the rebel, the black sheep, the lost child, the mascot, the overachiever. You are a child of God. You are known, loved, chosen, and free. And your children don't need a perfect parent. I know you hear me saying that over and over and over again. They don't need a perfect parent. They need a parent who is actively healing, who is in their sanctification process, being transformed into the image of Christ day by day, in the struggle, in the trenches, being sanctified through life's trials and tribulations, through messing up, making mistakes, owning our part, asking for forgiveness. Our children need a parent who can say, hey, I played a role that helped me survive, but I'm learning how to thrive. Friends, I want to ask you one question. What role are you still carrying that Jesus never asked you to carry? Today, I invite you to do a few things. This is your homework. This is your charge. This is your assignment. I invite you to do these 4 things. 1, identify the role. Rewind this episode. Go back to the beginning where I talked about those roles. Identify the role that your family dynamic, the family system, subconsciously assigned to you, the one you took on. Identify the role. The second thing I want you to do is to name the core belief underneath it. Name the limited core belief, the lie that Satan whispered to you that is underneath this false role, this false identity that you took on in this family system, the dysfunctional family system. Next, I want you to replace that lie with truth. Replace that lie with truth. And finally, step into the identity Jesus gave you. If you want help walking through that journey, right? Discovering what your family subconsciously assigned role was, what the family system required of you. If you want help with that, I'm here. I would love for you to book a biblical counseling or a family coaching session with me. You can do that by going to happyfamilycoach.com or grab the Happy Kid Toolkit for you and your kids. You can do that by going to happykidtoolkit.com. And if you're a woman craving deeper transformation, healing, and generational breakthrough, I would love for you to join us this September 18th through 21st, for the Renew and Restore Women's Retreat that I'm hosting here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. You can use code RESTRENEW50 before July 15th for a $50 discount, $50 off. Y'all, let's stop living out roles we were never meant to play. Let's start living as the healed, whole, spirit-led children of God we were created to be. And remember, you're not stuck in your story. You're not forgotten. You're not too far gone. You are not the label you were given. You are being rewritten by grace, and you're definitely not alone. I love you all so much. God bless you. Thank you for listening. I will see you next week.